Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the Weighing Room, sponsored by 10Bet, where it's just me and Paul this week. Frankie's not here, he's on course again, very busy man. And we're going to go through the cards at Newbury and Newcastle with some cracking racing with the Grade 1 Fighting Fifth, seeing Constitutional and Epperton. But we'll get into that later on. Paul, good to have you back this week. We didn't have a nap off you last week, but the nap before was Banbridge and that landed. So you're the first one during the jump season to kick us off. How do you feel? How you been?
Yeah, good. Keeping busy. Was a little bit tied up last week, unfortunately, but hopefully this week now we've come armed with a couple of winners. It's one of my favorite weekends. The racing calendar. You know, you got the big race at Newbury. We've got competitive action at Dundalk Friday night. Got the big race as I mentioned at Newbury, fighting fifth at Newcastle, and then as a local man, a Meath man, we got the Tri-Town to look forward to at Navan on Sunday. So great weekend in store.
Yeah, big weekend. And like as I mentioned, as you've mentioned, Newbury and Newcastle offer an absolutely cracking card. The Coral Gold Cup, name the Coral Gold Cup this year. To me, it's the Hennessy, it always will be.
Exactly.
Name it that. But that's going to be an absolutely cracking race with always a cracking handicap. And the Grade 1 Fighting Fifth sees 5 go to post this year. And obviously Constitutional, supposed to be raced at Ascot, now racing at Newcastle and takes on Epperton. That'll be an absolutely cracking race, and we get to see the Supreme Novice Hurdle winner back on track. Hopefully, we're recording on Friday morning, and we do know what Nicky Henderson's like. We don't know if he's going to pull him out with what the ground is, but hopefully he's running. So we'll go as he is. Before we get going, just want to bring your attention to 10Bet's superb offer they have running at the moment. For new bettors, they get 50% off their first deposit, up to £50 when signing up. Terms and conditions do apply, so make sure you check them out before getting involved. But it's a great offer, and as we said, there's some cracking action to get stuck into with that offer. Right then, Paul, we'll kick off at Newbury in the 120, and it's the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Memorial Handicap Chase, over 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs. Who do you like in this one? It's quite a good affair to start off.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's competitive, and the one that I'm looking forward to seeing this season is Java Point, who gets the season underway here. He was a good winner over course and distance when last seen back on April the 1st. He was recording his third success over fences on that occasion. He runs off a career high mark here of 133, so he'd need to be fairly straight, and he'd probably need to improve to take this. Slight concern is I used to work and ride for Tom George, and he does like his horses that first run of the season. He does like that to take them on a bit. He does like a little bit to work on and just for a bit of longevity in their season. So that would be a slight concern. But having said that, he did look a horse set to continue on the upward trajectory when last seen over course and distance. And I think if he's fit enough, he should be there or thereabouts. So I'm going to take a chance on Java Point.
Yeah, Java Point about 10-1, course and distance winner. And like you said, it's quite a trappy affair because there's a lot of horses in there that have got the potential off their marks to run a big race, but some of them are having their first run of the season. Some have had a prep run. It's very hard, but that's why I've gone for 2 in this race. And it's 2 horses that I've tipped up before and I'm staying with because their marks dropped slightly. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Captain Ord. I put this up alongside Frodon and the Badger Beer, and I like Christian Winners, the trainer. He hasn't got the most horses in the world, but with the horses he has, he does an absolutely great job. And Captain Ord coming down another £2 for his run in the Badger Beer when finishing third behind Lord Accord, who's in the Coral Gold Cup, and obviously Frodon, who went on to win off what's now a ridiculous mark. He went back up £6. But for me, Captain Ord, he's always won. And if you look in the market at the moment, I think he's currently around 10-1, same price as yours. He's an each player massively because he likes to just fill the frame all the time. He doesn't win all that often, but off a mark of 130 he is at the moment. He's £2 lower than he's running the Badger Beer. I just think he's prep run at Chepstow like he does every season. Just needs that to little pipe opener. He then went an absolute cracking race at Wincanton. Look, he was nowhere near the front 2, but if you actually look how far he compared to the rest of them, it was a brilliant run. Down another £2. He's got a race in him. He's got £7 claimer on Ellis Collier, which is obviously healthy, taking that £7 off. So effectively off a mark of 1, 2, 3. If Ellis Collier is good for his £7, surely Captain Ord at 10-1's got to run another big race. And I just think at 10-1 he can fill the frame, be an each way player. Another one I like in the race is Killer Kane. Killer Kane is a horse I've put up a fair few times now, and he's been frustrating in a couple of his runs, but still at an each way price around the 5-1 mark. I think he's got a lot of potential. He was bought for a lot of money, and these owners, with Colin Tizard, now with Joe Tizard, and he's had a great start to the season. He was bought for 300,000 at the Cheltenham Sales in 2020. They obviously thought this was going to be a very good horse. If you actually look at his runs, what he's done last season when he was bumped up to 3 miles, he started to show his true potential, especially over fences. But the run I want to look at is his last run. I tipped it that on the Winners and Closure website. I tipped it, and I just thought, looking back at the run, that was just what he needed to be right for this race, because it was over 3 miles. 3 miles at Exeter, and Masters Legacy went on to win, and he's absolutely got a great form line. Masters Legacy, if you look with Nappers Hill, Lord Baddesley in that race, with a lot of horses coming out and winning that race they were in. Masters Legacy was a brilliant winner, but if you actually look at Callaghan back in 6th, coming to the second last was okay, no problem. Jumped it and just blew out, absolutely blew out. So hopefully now, having that run under his belt, again, like I said with Captain Ord, Callaghan's down another £2, so down on a mark of 128. They wouldn't spend £300,000, these owners, on a horse that was probably 128, and they're thinking this horse is going to be a lot better. And I think off that mark, he's got an absolutely massive chance. He's got coming down to 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs as well from 3 mile. I think it's only going to help. If you look last time, he just blew up slightly. I think he's got enough stamina to go over 3 miles, but having that little drop slightly in trip is going to be absolutely perfect for Callaghan. And he's a horse I like quite a lot. And he's got some cracking form last season as well, winning a few times off 128, off 126, running off like marks like that, and off the similar mark of 128. I think he's got a really big chance. So yeah, Captain Ord and Callaghan would be my two-way pronged attack in this, both to play each way. So the next race we're going to talk about, it comes from Newcastle. It's their first event on ITV on Saturday. It's a novices limited handicap chase. Not all that many runners in the field over this 2 mile, 7.5 furlongs, Paul, but it's a tough one to call, isn't it, this one?
Yeah, it's trappy, just the 5 runners, and field sizes dominated a lot of the talking points from the last number of weeks. And I know might go slightly off course on this one, but this is, as I think we've spoke about this off air before, like this is something that's been happening since 05, 06, and it was very noticeable in the weigh room when they changed the old haydock, when they took the old park fences out at haydock and put in the portable fences, and that was to suit the flat racing more than anything. So jumps racing is under pressure. Field sizes have been happening, they've been getting smaller, and that, as a former jockey, that leaves, from our own perspective back then, everybody's available. So, the belt's getting tighter, and owners want the best, and that's fair enough. And if we look at this race, there's only the 5 runners, as you mentioned. There's only 3 of them training in the north, which is worrying. I think the north of England is under pressure, like Gavin Cromwell represented with Shantu Lucky, and Ben Paulin sends up Malinello. But back from a betting perspective, it's a northern raider I've gone for. I've gone with the lightly raced Son of the Somme, who he's only had the 9 starts, 8 of which were over hurdles, which yielded 1 victory. He finished 3rd of 9 on chasing debut over 2.5 miles at Ayr in October. He's by Yates, whose progeny tend to get better with age. And as we mentioned, he faces just the 4 rivals here. And I think Son of the Somme should give a good account of himself.
Yeah, you make a great point there, because obviously it's been a massive talking point, hasn't it? Jumps racing especially. It's from my point of view, I'm a jumps racing fan over flat racing. I love both, but I'm a jumps racing fan at heart. And it's sad to see, isn't it, when you see all the when we did the podcast last week, me and Frankie, and obviously we're talking about the Edwardstones, Lawn Press, Constitutional that were going to Ascot, and what a card that was going to be. For all them to be pulled out on account of the grounds, I know it's been a unusually dry time, like in England, and it's been a nightmare really for jumps racing. Great for flat, but it's just sad to see. And you see, like you said, only 5 runners going for a race like this. Normally it's going to be packed.
James, you'd always hear that, like, the ground, and we're waiting for you're either waiting for rain or you're waiting for Cheltenham. But sure, the horses that aren't supposedly turning up here, they're not going to Cheltenham. There's only 3 northern runners here, and you look at Carlisle predominantly during the year. The majority of Carlisle runners, you have maybe 5-6 runner fields, but the majority of those fields are made up of Southern or Irish runners. Northern racing's under pressure. Like, to put it into perspective as well, like, I moved over to England in 2001, and when I went over, you'd go racing for 1 ride, and your agent would maybe pick you up another 1 or 2, so you'd have maybe 2 or 3 rides. But now it's just not happening. you know, there's not the runners. You had 15, 16 runners a race max. Like, you very rarely had a field with less than 10 runners in it. Where now, if you have a field with 10 runners in it over jumps, that's a big field. And it's worrying. I don't know what would fix it. Prize money obviously is a massive part to play in it, but you can't just go with your hands out to sponsors going, give me more money or give me money. You know, I'm not sure how you'd fix it, but this is a problem that's been happening probably for the last 20 years. And, I'd worry about the future of it.
I completely agree with what you're saying, and like he's where you come to now. I know we've gone off a bit of tangent, but I think it's a good talking point to talk about that it has been happening for a long, long time, and it's going to come to a point in the next 2 or 3 years that jumps racing could be at the lowest it's ever been. I think it probably is now, but again, how you saw it, prize money, yes, always a factor. Everyone wants to win more money. But the amount of racing that goes on all through the year, you look even through like the summer. I know trainers train certain horses that want to go through the summer, but there's just no break, is there? And I know everyone wants to see all the horse racing in the world, but there's just no break at all. There's too many races. It's not as competitive as it used to be. And this is what happens. Stuff like this. You're right. These horses aren't going to Cheltenham. These horses are wanting to, off their handicap marks, wanting to, well, a lot of them are coming into this. Well, Malinello, who I'm going to tip up, but I'll speak about, he's having his first run over fences. So you want to see more horses out to get the experience, don't you?
Yeah.
And have a go. Like yourself.
If you're the novice chaser there and you're wanting to give him a little bit of confidence and what have you, small field, 5 runners, you know, when I went over to England, we'd say go back 20, 30 years ago, you know, if you got a novice chase, you might have 10 or 15 runners and you're going, geez, this will be rough and ready. But you only have 5 runners here. If you had a horse that you were looking to send novice chasing and was pretty natural over a fence, it's an ideal opportunity. You're going to get loads of light, loads of space, and pop round and see what happens.
No, I agree. Anyway, back onto the tipping. I'm going to go for Malinello in this one. And like you say, it's a tricky one because I think every horse in this race has a chance. The betting suggests that because you look, it's 11-4, 11-4, 3-1, 4-1, 7-1. The field's very tightly knit. But Malinello was the one for me. And I'm taking a chance because he's been off the track for nearly 2 years. But if you actually look at some of the form he holds, and if he's able to put it all together, and Ben Paul he's had a tough time over the last 2 or 3 years, and Ben Poynt's a cracking trainer, but there's obviously something gone on with the yard. I think there's been a yard change as well where they've moved stables, but he's getting more winners this season. And Luca Morgan takes the ride. I think he's a cracking claimer for his £3. But Malinello, very likely race. Like you say, perfect race for him he'll see loads of space. He can jump his fences, and obviously he's a stayer in the maker going over this trip. But he's only 7 years of age, and he's only raced 4 or 5 times. He made his seasonal debut in a bumper at Chepstow in December 2019 and was second, and that was a decent bumper, actually. We looked through the form of that race. He then went to Huntington and finished 4th behind Third Time Lucky, Bothwell Bridge. Again, another good bumper. He was sent hurdling November 2020 at Kempton. He was second over 2 mile 5 that day, and then he got off the mark in December at Marking Racing. That was in impressive fashion. He won quite well that day. The problem was he was last seen in January 2021, and he was second behind Flash Kalonges, who's not a bad horse, not a bad handicapping horse. That was at Wincanton. Hasn't been since then. He's obviously had his problems, but they've got him back on track for this. And if he's taken some of the past form he's had, and he can produce that over fences on his chase debut, he surely has these in the locker, because they're not the best horses in the world, are they? In a race like this, the mark suggests that, but if they're off the back form he's got and the potential is shown over his 4 or 5 runs, Malinello, it's just you taking the chance on if he's right after 2 years, and he might be a very tricky horse to trade. But yeah, I'm going to take a chance on Malinello at 3-1. I think that could be a good price if he takes to chasing. Right, then the next event we're going to cover is the Coral Racing Club Handicap Hurdle Race, over 2 mile, 4 mile furlongs, and this looks another tricky one, Paul.
Yeah, this could be a belter. And at the prices, I've gone with Petit Tonnerre for the John Joe O'Neill Senior and Junior combination. Now, Petit Tonnerre, less than 2 lengths separated himself and Peck and Rose when the pair clashed at Aintree back in October. I'm going to take a chance that Petit Tonnerre would have had a little bit more to work on fitness-wise than Peck and Rose. And the selection found life a little tough in Grade 1 company at Aintree on his final start last season, but prior to that, he did look potentially quite smart and a work still in progress when he took a 3-runner race at Market Racing back in February. Off a handicap mark of 139, Connections have opted not to claim off 12 stone, which would indicate in this company off that mark, he should be there or thereabouts. So at the price at around about 12 to 1, I'm happy to take a chance on Petit Tonnerre.
Yeah, this race is probably the one I spent the most time on, like yesterday, going through, because I could make a case for a lot of horses here.
Yeah.
And I'll start with Petit Tonnerre. I think he would probably be my second selection in the race, and he's got an absolutely cracking chance. Obviously, last year as a juvenile, he bought by JP Manus, came over, won a lovely race. I think it was at Carlisle just before going to. I was going to go to Cheltenham, but was a non.
Right.
And he was pulled up at Aintree. But I think this horse has got a lot of class, and like you say, not claiming off this horse off a marker. What 138 is it? 139? Yeah, 139.
139. Yeah.
He obviously thinks he's got more to come in the locker. And off that first run, I did think that he would reverse a form with Peking Rose, and I think Peking Rose 11 to 2 and Petit Tonnerre at 12 to 1. I thought that was probably the play from that angle. And like if you go through the West Balboa is obviously a nice horse for the Skeltons. We don't know much about it and could be well handicapped of 127. Like I said about Peking Rose, I think Petit Tonnerre will change the form with that. I don't think Porticello will run. It's a horse who wants heavy ground, and it's not heavy ground at all. So I'll be surprised if that runs. But the Moors are in good form. Lord Baddesley's got some cracking form in the book. I'll be second, and then absolutely bolting up last time at Plumpton. But the horse that I couldn't get away from, and I tried to make a case against it, but he could be so well handicapped of 132. It's Walking on Air for Nicky Henderson. This 5-year-old, son of Walk in the Park, he made his rules debut in March last year at Kempton in a 2-mile bumper, and that was behind Shall We Have One More. Obviously, a really nice horse that was for Gary Moore, and that was good form. He was sent over hurdles last season, and he's only been seen twice. Like since then, because he went on to win that race. You go back and watch that. He won by 13 lengths, and he absolutely bolted up, and everyone was absolutely waxing the record about the horse going to Cheltenham, what he running. Anyway, picked up a bit of setback, went to Aintree, and he was against the likes of Three Stripe Live. I think Monmoral was in that race. Was it in that race? Sorry. Let me just have a check. Three Stripe Life won the race. Sorry, Mai Tai. Mai Tai was in that race. And it was obviously a good race. He was pulled up walking on air, but he's obviously had his issues. He's got a lot of talent, this horse, and they didn't obviously buy this horse to be a handicap hurdle horse. He's going to be a grade 1, grade 2 performer, and running it off 132 in a handicap hurdle could be an absolute genius move. And I just couldn't get away at the price around 11 to 4, 3 to 1. I think there could be a cracking price come the off. And I'm really excited to see this horse. I'm just really surprised it was in a handicap, and off its mark, I couldn't get away from it. So it'd be Walking on Air for me. But Petit Tonnerre, like you say, Paul, he's won at 12 to 1. That's a cracking bet each way, I think, in that race. But it's a cracking event. You can make a case for a lot of horses in that for me. But Walking on Air for me in that one. Back over to Newcastle, and the feature race of the afternoon at the Northern Track is the Grade 1 fighting fifth hurdle. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Constitution Hill against Epperton. It's nice to see Constitution Hill going to obviously have a proper test. But I was speaking in the office to some of the lads, and I was saying he's a price of 2 to 7, 2 to 9 now. Constitution Hill. What price is he going to be? He's against a champion hurdle winner, a grade one performer in Epperton, and finished second in the champion hurdle last year. He's 2 to 9? Like, what price are you going to be at the festival? But I think we're both going for Constitution Hill in, and we were hoping he was going to run last week. Obviously, I think he goes and wins this. But what price does he go off at the festival if he's 2 to 9 in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think after this, I don't think he's going to be a betting proposition. I think come March, I think anyway. Having said that, I do think the champion hurdle, I think the faster it'll go, the better it will suit Honeysuckle. But the mare's not getting any younger, and this guy looks pretty sensational. It's just going to be a question of how far. And I think we're all looking forward to, everyone, Epperton's a crowd favourite and what have you. But I think we're all looking forward to seeing something, and hopefully to seeing something special here.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll put up Constitution Hill, because we'll put up a tip for the race, and hopefully he wins, and he should. He could just be an absolute freak, couldn't he? I feel sorry for Epperton in the way, because this has always been her starting point. She just goes and wins this race if Constitution Hill's not in the field. But she's a great horse in her own right, isn't she? She's been brilliant for JP Manus, Nicky Henderson.
It's great.
Even though it's a shame from her perspective, it's great from a neutral's perspective watching the racing, because he's actually seen Constitution Hill have a proper test. You'd like to think, wouldn't you? And see how I just think if you're gonna, the bet probably this weekend is to back Constitution Hill for the champion hurdle now, because if it runs and absolutely bolts up like we think it will against Epatante, who's no mug, it's going to be odds on, isn't it, for the champion hurdle?
Yeah.
And even though, look, it's a tougher race, and we're talking 4 months in advance, this horse is just so special from what he did last year. And I just hope he trains on, because you don't know with these horses sometimes, do you? And until you see it in the flesh, it's very hard to say. But yeah, Constitution Hill, and I just can't make a case. I know Not So Sleepy was dead heated against Epatante. I think it was last year. Tommy's Oscar, a really good horse in its own right, but being over fencing. Yeah. Avoid a rev, 125 to 1. He's obviously not in the same calibre of this horse. So yeah, I think it's a sit back and watch race and take it in for later down the line. But yeah, it's exciting to see Constitution Hill, and we just hope both of them run so we get to see them both on the track. Anyway, next on the agenda is the Jerry Fielden Intermediate Handicap Hurdle. Pass won by Epatante in this race. It's another decent field that goes to post this year. Paul, who did you land on?
I've gone with Picard, who, despite racing keenly, went on to win nicely on seasonal reappearance at Chepstow back in October. He's only had the 4 starts to date. There should be more to come, and that run at Chepstow just should have taken the edge off Picard. And I think if he settles better, I think we could be set for a smart performance from the Skelton runner.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on this one. I think Picard's the play in this around the 100 to 30 mark. He's run on seasonal debut at Chepstow. That wasn't a bad race at all. If you look back, Cullenbach was a great performer in bumpers. I think was finished well in the Aintree bumper last season. Master Chewy was going to go on and win before falling. So the form's on then. Time for a Tunes come out and won since. So the form of that race is not bad at all. And given a mark of 127 for a race like this, I think it just could be a much better horse than that mark. I think 100 to 30, I think Picard's the play for me. And it was quite exciting how he was. And obviously the Skeltons in good form. Protectorat winning the Betfair Chase was massive for them. Hopefully they can go and kick on and win some other nice races this season. So yeah, Picard for me in that one as well. Right then, the feature event on ITV from Newbury is the Coral Gold Cup Handicap Chase over 3 mile 2 furlong. It's a race I absolutely love every season because you can get stuck in. There's cracking prices about. It's horses that you love. They're chasers. They're trying the high over, staying distance. And this year is going to be no different because it's a cracking field that's gone to post. At the top of the market, we've got 6 to 1 Corrick Rambler. It was absolutely brilliant performance to win the Ultima at Cheltenham. 300 through 5, 13 to 2, a cracking horse for the McNeil family and Paul Nicholls. Remastered 13 to 2. Bustleton for the Irish, 8 to 1. And Kerry National winner, probably wouldn't have won if he could have stood up, but a brilliant performance in his own right for Joseph O'Brien. And then you've got 8 to 1 bar that with Jericho Rock, Oscar Elite, Fiddler on the Roof, and Lamilos filling around the same price. Paul, it's a tricky one, isn't it, from a punting perspective, but it's a cracking race.
Yeah, it is. It's a real a belter. Something to look forward to. And it's the Northern Raider I've gone with. I've gone with the Lucinda Russell train, Corrick Rambler. Derek Fox on board. He made, I thought, a satisfactory return over the 2.5 miles, the stiff 2.5 miles at Carlisle last time out. He does like to be dropped in, so hopefully they'll go fairly hard on the front end in the early stages, and that'll play into Corrick Rambler's hands, and he'll be staying on best of the rest up the home straight. He's a 10-year-old. He's only had the 7 starts over fences, so you'd imagine he's had his quirks and connections have been quite patient with him. So bear in mind that he is 10. He's only had the 7 runs. There could be a bit more improvement to come out of him. So he's a horse that Derek gets on pretty well with. And yeah, I'm going to side with Corrick Rambler. Yeah,
Corrick Rambler's a solid selection, 6 to 1 near the top of the market in this. And you know he'll stay because the way he ran in the Ultimate, he was out the back of the TV. And I backed him that day and I was thinking, what is going on here? And then when he come around the turn and the amount he found was just unbelievable. So I think probably the Grand National is going to be his big target come the end of the season. I'd be surprised if he wasn't going for that because the horse has just got that much stamina.
Yeah, and I think James, sorry, but I think Newbury will suit him. Like it's a half a mile, it's bang on 4 furlongs when you straighten up for home at Newbury. So I think if they do go a good gallop, which they should do, that'll play into his strengths here. So, and I think the big field will suit him. I think that hustle and bustle just keeps him interested. So
yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that.
Newbury strengths.
Yeah, solid selection, Corrick Rambler. I've gone for 2 in this, and the one I was drawn to first off was Remastered for David Pipe. This horse last year, if you go back and watch the race, I think it was the 4th fence he fell. He was about to absolutely go so close in that race, and it was a £4 lower that day. off a marker 146, and he just smacked. He was out in front. It was a long way to go, but he was out in front. He was travelling lovely. He just clipped the top of the fence and fell over. And it turned out to be a cracking race between the finishes, but I think that horse would have gone really close. So if you look, he's had a wind operation. He's already had a wind operation before. He's had a second wind operation. And it seemed to have worked the trick, because if you look at his run over hurdles, and obviously was used as a prep run, but he went on to win a Pertemps qualifier, obviously off a lower mark over hurdles, but the wind operations obviously put him bang on. David Pipe's horse, if you look back for us, if you're when they're having the second run and wind up, he's a better strike run than he has first. So it was nice to see that come out and win after the first, after its wind up first time. And it's just off that marker 142, £4 lower than the 146 last year when it was going to go close. I thought it was an ideal prep run. He's got cracking form in big fields, handicaps like the likes of Haydock, when he's 4th of 10 in the Peter Marsh behind Royal Pagaille. And he was 2nd in the Tommy Whittle as well. So he'll stay the trip, no problem. He's a hardened pro over these fences. Look, he did tip up last season, but that happens to horses. You can't account for a fall, can you? And that does happen. They make mistakes. They're animals, not machines. But I'd like to think of £4 lower. I think he's got a really big chance. And a horse he finished ahead of last time in that hurdles race was Milan Bridge, and I'm a fan of Milan Bridge. He went on to beat that by four lengths that day. So, yeah, for marker 142, Remaster's really interested me at 13-2. Another one I just want to put up, and it's a bigger price around the 12-1 mark. It's been backed in from 20-1, 16-1, 14-1, down to 12s now. It's Lord Accord for Neil Mulholland, Richard McClernand on board. This horse has just seemed to found his form in these sorts of races. If you look, he had a prep run off a marker 133 at Worcester in September, and it was a cracking pipe opener because he then went to Cheltenham over 3 mile 1 in October, absolutely bolted up off a marker 131. He won so easy. He was up £5, and obviously it must be a momentum horse because the form he's carrying. He went to the Badger Beer and took Frodon so close. I mean, we don't know how good Frodon is, and we know he was off a nice handicap mark, really. But to take that horse close over a staying trip in a big fielded event, coming here off 136, off the same mark, I just thought Lord Accord was slightly overlooked in the market, 12-1. I know he's been backed in, but I think he could probably be a shorter price, and I think he's got a cracking chance just for the form he's in. I just had to put him up as well as an each-way selection because I thought he's in cracking form and can be competitive. And like you say with Corrit Ramler, I think the big field suits this horse. And I think staying on late, he'll be one who can feature. Newcastle's final event we're going to cover then on ITV is the Betfair Exchange Rehearsal Premier Handicap Chase over 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs. And it sees L'Homme Presse, like we were talking about, Constitution Hill was pulled out. L'Homme Presse was pulled out last week as well. But L'Homme Presse is the headliner in this race around 11-8 at the top of the market. Paul, who did you go for?
Yeah, but the price is L'Homme Presse is the one they all have to beat, and the price reflects that. But Dingo Dollar might just prove a popular alternative to the favourite. He tired to finish a well-beaten 3rd behind I Right in this race last year, but when ridden with a little restraint, he stayed on nicely to take a veterans handicap chase at Aintree last time out. I think if ridden with similar restraint here, Dingo Dollar could pose the biggest threat to the favourite.
Yeah, course and distance winner around the 8-1 mark for Sandy Thompson. Dingo Dollar's definitely got a big chance. Look, I know it's easy to tip a favourite. I just couldn't get away from L'Homme Presse. I just love a Grade 1 performer in a handicap. I think with horses like this, he's off 164. He's top weight, 12 stone. I don't think weight comes into it. Like I put Frodon up in the Badger Beer. And he was obviously a miles better horse than the horse he was running against. And the thing with these, you'll know more than me from like riding the horses, but I think when you have a Grade 1 performer in a handicap, these handicap horses are handicap horses for a reason. They can't go the certain pace and jumping at the same speed as Grade 1 performers. They just can't compete with them. I just think L'Homme Presse, if you look at it, he will be there, still going, still cantering lovely, coming to the second last, third last, where some might be giving it a go. And at their mark, he might be, £20-30 lower than what L'Homme Presse is. But I don't think weight comes into it in a race like this. I think L'Homme Presse is the best horse in the race. I just hope it doesn't need the run, because it might just need the run to start its season off. It'll be going into Grade 1 throughout this season. I think probably the Gold Cup will be where the owners are looking at this season. It's that type of horse. I think it's a great starting point. And for me, yes, it's short, 11-8, but I just think it's the best horse in the race. And I hope it goes and does the job, because I really think this is probably Britain's best chance of a Gold Cup winner this season. I know it might be a big stain, but I really like Lompress, and I think he's got an absolutely great chance in this. And I hope he makes a cracking start to his season. But Venetia Williams, there's been a bit of talk, and she hasn't had all the winners, but there's always a start for her. She's had a few winners over the last few weeks. She wasn't in great form before that. But when she starts to get a bit of a winner, she goes on a roll around November, December, going into January. She starts to have those winners, and hopefully she kick on, because I think she's a great trainer and she's got some great horses. The only thing is, there's been a lot of talk about the ground. It's good to soft currently at Newcastle as we record. We hope it stays good to soft so we can see some of these runners. Lompress would probably want it a bit softer. Obviously, you see his performance in at Cheltenham. He doesn't mind it soft at all. But if you look at his form, he has won on good to soft ground as well. And I think he can go close. So, yeah, but it's a cracking race. It's always a good race. It's seen some lovely winners in the past. So, yeah, a good race at Newcastle. The final event on ITV then we're going to cover on Saturday is the Coral Get Closer to the Action Handicap Chase over 2.5 miles a furlong. Another tricky punting proposition, Paul, but finish off our selections. Who do you like?
As much as I would love to see Bundoran lead them home here, I've gone elsewhere. I love the horse. Absolutely massive fan. But I've gone with the Chris Gordon trained Only Money under jockey Tom Cannon, who was just denied the hat-trick of victories when last seen finishing third of 6 at Aintree at the beginning of November. He was only beaten a little over 5 lengths by the winner and ran well for a long way, having been dropped in. I think he's a horse that I think he likes to be ridden close to the pace, or certainly closer to the front end. And I think if he settles and get in, he can race a little bit keenly. I think if Only Money settles and gets into a nice rhythm early on, I think he'll be tough to beat. Yeah,
Chris Gordon couldn't be in any better form this season. His horses are running absolutely brilliantly, aren't they? If you look at some of these runners, like he had unanswered prayers at Cheltenham and stuff like that, but he's having winners all over the place. He's a cracking trainer. I think he's a trainer to follow this season because he's having a lot of really nice horses like go on and win. But I'm going to go against his horse, I am. And a horse I really, really like. Honestly, I'm a massive fan of this horse. It's Amarillo Sky. I think 6-4. I think it could be a steal. I think only going £4 higher than his win at Cheltenham. Went from the front, jumped like a stag, was absolutely brilliant. If you look at, he's also finished 5th in the Grand Annual. That was in torrential conditions. The rain poured down. But if you look at him, he actually likes good to soft, good ground. Joe Tizard was talking at Cheltenham ahead of that race, and this was the race he was pinpointing as his big target for like the early start of the season. That Cheltenham race, he was surprised how well he went because it was more of like a pipe opener, but he went on to win that day. He's only gone up £4. He couldn't go up too much because he didn't win by that far, but he jumped brilliantly and raced really well. Amarillo Sky at 6-4, I think it's an absolutely cracking bet and could be one of my best bets of the weekend. But yeah, Amarillo Sky for me. He's got some cracking form in the book. Off 144. I think he's still well in. So yeah, Amarillo Sky for me. Right then, Paul, that's it for all the Saturday's races. We've covered them all. And like I said at the top of the show, Banbridge was your winner 2 weeks ago with a nap, and you kicked off for the three of us having a nap winner. So I'll give you the honour to try and make it 2 out of 2. And I know you're probably chucking a Dundalk one as well, won't you?
Yeah, definitely. I will, surely. But I don't think it's going to be easy this week. I think it's really competitive action. I think we've, as you said in a couple of the races, James, there's a few races there where you can make solid selections for the majority of the field. For a Saturday nap, I've gone with the lightly race Son of the Somme in the 135 at Newcastle. So that's my nap selection. At Dundalk this evening, final race, 8:30. I quite like the chances of the Gerard O'Leary trained Adamaris. Last time Shane Foley was on board, he rode the selection to victory. That was at Killarney, I think, back in August 2001. He ran a cracker to finish third of 14 last time out at Dundalk. That was his first start on the back of a 289-day break. He's got a nice draw in stall number 8, and I think he should put it up to the favourite. I think he's second choice in the betting at the minute behind the Willie Mullins train Gibraltar, who's drawn out wide. But I think with that, the benefit of being drawn closer to the inside rail, I've gone with Adamaris. And I'm just going to mention one. We got the Tri-Town we mentioned at the start of the show to look forward to at Navan. I know we're recording on Friday morning. Decks are made at 10 o'clock for Navan on Sunday. But it's a race that us Mead men like to keep in the county now. And I think the Gordon Elliott, as trainers and jockeys, and I think the Gordon Elliott trained Punitive, if he takes his chance, would have a lively chance in that Tri-Town chase at Navan on Sunday.
Lovely, a few selections. Wouldn't be the same without a Dundalk tip. But yeah, nice to have a NAB one as well. Frankie's also going to put up a nap, and we'll add that in later. But for me, I think I touched on it. Amarillo Sky for me at 6-4 is my nap this weekend. Superb at Cheltenham on seasonal debut, only up £4. He was pinpointed for this race, 6-4. I think he's got an excellent chance. I think he'll go out at the front and just try and beat them all home from the front. So yeah, Amarillo Sky for me. And hopefully, I haven't been in the best of form, to be fair, with my naps. I know I went on a lovely run on the flat, but on the jumps, I can't seem to get it going. So hopefully Amarillo Sky kicks it off for me this weekend. Paul, that's it for this week. Thanks as always for your selections. A great weekend ahead, as you said. Newbury offering some great racing. Newcastle offering the fighting fifth. And hopefully we found some winners in there for you. Please be sure to like this video. Comment your selections below for the weekend. Put your napping in the comments. And make sure you subscribe so you get a notification, obviously, when there's more content coming out on the channel. Paul, all the best for the weekend. All the best to everyone, whatever you're back in. And thanks again.